Geologist gets revenge on neighbors who blocked her car with a huge boulder. When it comes to neighbors, you can either get the best neighbors in the world or the worst neighbors in the world. Good neighbors are quiet, respectful, they keep their yards clean, and they might even invite you to the occasional barbecue. Bad neighbors are loud, rude, and they leave their trash all over their yard and yours. When they do have a barbecue, it's often loud, rowdy, and you won't be invited. Dealing with bad neighbors can be difficult. You don't want to call the police because it'll only escalate the problem. The same is true if you confront your neighbor. Not saying anything also won't work because they'll continue with their bad behavior. When it comes to bad neighbors, you could be stuck between a rock and a hard place. This literally happened to one woman. Melissa Scruggs lives in California, and she's a volcanology PhD candidate. When it comes to rocks and rock formations, she knows it all. Being in the field, she has her own tools to get deep into rocks so that she can get to the center. She never thought that having these tools in her home would ever come in handy, but she was wrong. Melissa's neighbors were undergrads. They moved across the driveway from her in July 2018. At first, she was a bit concerned about living next door to these people because they threw parties often. Fortunately, when they did have their parties, they were considerate. They kept the music down to a reasonable level, and they kept their guests out of the yard and the driveway that they shared with Melissa. Everything was great. Until one day it wasn't. While Melissa and her neighbors shared a driveway, there was a short fence at the top that separated their two driveways. They kept a boulder in the center of the fence, halfway between each driveway. This was to keep someone who wasn't good at parking from taking down the fence. It was a bit of an eyesore, but it worked for everyone. Unfortunately, someone moved the rock. The first incident occurred on a weekday. One of the guys who lived next door from Melissa thought that the boulder was too inconvenient for him. He turned the boulder so that it was more on Melissa's fence. She knocked on the door to ask them to help her move it back, but nobody answered the door. Melissa had to find help on her own to move the boulder. She was frustrated, but she let it go and moved on with her life. The final straw occurred on a Friday night. Melissa was in her house sleeping because she had to work the next day. When she woke up, she saw that someone had moved the boulder again. This time it wasn't just more on her side of the fence than theirs. The boulder was blocking her entire driveway to the point where she couldn't get her car out. She was furious. Fortunately, she had some geology tools at her house. She decided to get the ultimate revenge. Melissa knew that if she rolled the boulder a bit, that she could get her car out. Her neighbors would do it again. She went into her house and got her auto chipper. This is a very loud tool that's used to cut into rocks. She brought hers out at 7:30 a.m. and started chipping away. She knew that her auto chipper was extremely loud, which made her idea great. At 7:30 a.m. after a big party, she was sure that her neighbors were sleeping, nursing hangovers, or both. She turned on the loud auto chipper and chipped away at the boulder for close to 4 hours. When Melissa was done, the boulder was reduced to a pile of rubble. To let her neighbors see what she did, she left the pile in the middle of the driveway. That boulder was never going to be a problem for Melissa again. Chances are her neighbors didn't get much sleep that morning. Melissa decided to post her revenge plot on social media. She wanted people to see what she'd done to her rude and rowdy neighbors. Her post quickly went viral, and people wanted to know more about the story. Many people commented on the post, and they wanted to know what happened next. Melissa had no problem obliging them. This story is proof that you should never mess with your neighbor, especially if she's a geologist.